Yo, what's up fanbase, it's your boy Blaze Hollow coming at you with a new what if, and this time I'm taking some inspiration that I decided to take for a little while. I'm done with the heroes, I decided to do something really wicked. This story will have blood, guts, manipulation, and a couple of things that if you are lighthearted and do not like body horror, you might want to step away now. But if you're still here, I welcome you to this new what if. What if Deku had Mahito's powers? So sit back, relax, and be ready to see a side of my writing that you haven't seen since part 19 of the beta run of All for One. So start that intro and let's get into it.
I honestly don't think you can become a hero.
Our story starts off like usual, the bullies, the teachers that do nothing, and our lovable character meeting his idol All Might, only for him to find out that he's not the man he used to be, causing Izuku to step back in confusion. Wait a second, you're not All Might. All Might coughed up blood into his right hand as he was using his left hand to brush away the smoke. No, I am him, I just got a really bad injury a few years back. He then lifted up his shirt, revealing his gruesome scar. I got this a few years back fighting against a villain. Izuku's eyes went wide, realizing who could have done this to All Might. Was it from your battle with Toxic Chainsaw? All Might was surprised, knowing that that wasn't one of his most popular fights on the news. You really know your stuff, but no, it wasn't him. Izuku calmed down a little bit, still wanting to ask that one question that's been on the back of his mind. Do you mind answering a question? All Might let out a sigh, realizing that he might need a few more minutes before he can buff back up. Sure, kid, what's your question? It must be something really important if you're willing to risk grabbing onto my leg and falling to your death. Izuku took a deep breath as he said the one line that he wanted to say to his hero with all of his heart. Do you think it's possible for a person without a quirk to become a hero? All Might tilted his head while he was thinking to himself how dumb of a question this was. No, people like that would be a liability. They better off just trying to be police officers or firefighters, but even then, heroes usually do their job as well. Izuku felt like his whole world was just shattered. He knew that for years everybody kept on telling him that he couldn't be a hero without a quirk, but hearing it from the #1 hero seemed to hit him like a ton of bricks. But I thought you told everybody that anyone could be a hero. All Might stood up as he got into his buff and muscular form. I did, but mainly I was saying it because quirkless were on the decline, and without a quirk you would be a liability and should be off the battlefield. Do yourself a favor and maybe get yourself a desk job. Izuku just stood there for a second as he watched All Might leap away, and once the hero was out of sight, he dropped to his knees as tears started to drop from his eyes, not knowing what to do with himself anymore. So, that's it. I am worthless. They were all right, but what should I do with myself now? After a couple of minutes, Izuku finally came down from the building, depressed and tears in his eyes, feeling an emptiness, so he decided to take a new route further than he usually would go. As he was walking, he came across an alleyway where he saw a blonde woman being pulled into it, but she didn't seem like she wanted to go. So Izuku walked up to the edge of the alleyway and peeked one of his eyes out so he could see what was going to happen. As a group of 3 guys seemed to be trying to force themselves onto that blonde girl. Izuku ran into the alleyway trying to help the girl by punching the guy that was right in front of her, even though the guy didn't really move that much from the weak punch. You should leave that girl alone. It's not right to take advantage of someone. The leader of the group, who got hit in the face, just stood there with a smirk on his face as he punched Izuku square in the jaw, causing him to slam right into the pavement. Alright boys, rough him up a bit. That's make him into an example for the lady here if she continues to fight back. Both of the guys grabbed metal baseball bats that were leaning up against the wall of the alleyway and just started to smash down on Izuku, being relentless ruthless as they hit a couple of times in the head, some in the body, and a couple in the legs. Izuku was thinking to himself, why is this happening? Why are people just so cruel? He felt another hit to the head with the metal bat, which started to enrage him. He felt like something was shouting in his mind. This just sucks. From my childhood bully to those teachers and even my idol, and now just a couple of strangers? Goon number 1 was enjoying beating the shit out of Izuku as he was instead putting his metal bat up against the wall and decided to kick him with his own foot right in Izuku's ribs. Oh, come on, you were talking all that good shit about us taking advantage of somebody, so don't jump in if you ain't ready to get hit. Goon number 2 decided to get a little bit more personal as he picked up Izuku by his hair and started to punch him in the face. But by the third time he punched him, he started to feel an aching in his hand for some weird reason, but he decided to just ignore it and punch Izuku harder. Come on, say something, hero. You wanted to save the day, right? Well, just keep on dreaming, loser. Izuku was in so much pain, his body ached and he could taste blood in his mouth. But he didn't want to retreat. He could hear the endless mocking of all those who treated him wrong in his life. And once his body hit the concrete again, he felt like something in him was going to change. I've had enough. The leader smirked, feeling like he got his point across. Well, good, kid. Why don't you go running home to your mommy? Maybe she'll patch you up. Just remember that this was a warning. Don't get in my group's way ever again. The blonde girl just stood there. She wasn't even fazed or concerned or even worried. She just was intrigued by the green-haired boy covered in blood and bruises. But when she saw his eyes, it looked like a monster had been born. Once chained, but now being released. It was weird. She just didn't know how to feel, but Izuku got up as he was getting closer to Goon number 2 with no hesitation, stabbing all 5 of his fingers into the guy's chest cavity. Izuku glared at the guy. He had purple miasma around his eyes. Some would say looking into this would be monstrous, but it looked like Izuku's eyes were glazed over. Something else had been released within him. Do you know what it feels like to be bullied for having no power whatsoever? The goon was freaking out looking into those eyes as he started to cough up blood and feeling so much pain in his chest cavity. What are you talking about, psycho? You have power. No normal person could have shoved their fingers into somebody. Are you some kind of freak? Izuku heard those insults as if they were echoes in his mind. He then removed his fingers from the goon's chest cavity. He then proceeded to kick the goon in the chest right into the brick wall behind him, embedding him into it, causing everybody in the alleyway to hear the cracking of the guy's ribcage. Do you know what it feels like to try to get your teachers or some adults to help you, only for them to turn their cheek and tell you deal with it and know your place? Goon number 1 quickly grabbed onto his bat and went to swing on Izuku, only for the bat to bend like it hit up against solid metal, causing the man to drop it. As the guy's hands were vibrating in pain from the recoil from the bat hitting up against Izuku. What the hell happened to you? A few minutes ago, those bats were basically beating you to death, but now you're like this? What did you do? Are you on drugs? Are you some kind of mutant? You truly can't be human. Izuku turned his head to look at the man who just swung on him, as his eyes told everybody who saw them that he is going to kill this man, as he reached out and grabbed goon number 1 by the face. Do you understand what it feels like to look up to someone your entire life only for them to crush your dreams and tell you to go get a crappy desk job? He started to squeeze down with this monstrous grip he didn't even realize he had, causing the guy to wail out in agony. Izuku then proceeded to then throw the goon into the same wall as the other guy. I want the both of you to disappear and understand my pain. The leader of the group watched as both of his goons were chucked into the same wall, but before he could say anything or do anything to help them, both of them burst out like blood packets, smearing the wall and the psycho in front of them. The leader stepped back, shaking, hoping that he can get away with an apology since he didn't cause any physical damage to the guy. Hey look, I'm sorry for what my guys just did to you. Do you want some money? Maybe do you want some girls? You can have this one. I can maybe find you some more. Just please don't kill me. Izuku walked up to the guy slowly as blood was dripping off of him. The smell of metal was in the air. And once he was within an inch of the guy's face, he put both of his hands on the guy's shoulder and spoke in this raspy voice. I want you to understand in your next life the pain that you cause others eventually comes back to bite you. The leader of the group was about to plead to get out of Izuku's grip, but he couldn't move as he started to scream out in pain, feeling his body boil, twist, and rupture into blood. His entire corpse turned into a massacre scene from a horror movie. After a few minutes passed, Izuku shook his head trying to figure out what the heck he just did. As the voices that were screaming in his head started to go silent, once he noticed the bloody massacre, he looked at his hand shakily. Oh my god, what did I just do, and how did I do it? The blonde stood there as she smiled, deciding to walk up to Izuku. You killed all three of them. We need to get out of here before anybody comes by. Izuku's eyes were shaky, trying to put together what just happened. Why aren't you freaking out? I'm freaking out. I'm doing everything I just can not to scream out. The girl put her hand over Izuku's mouth, keeping him from screaming. Don't scream, just follow me. Izuku felt his wrist being grabbed as she was pulling him, but he didn't know what else to do, so he just followed her. Who are you, and what was going on with those guys? She smiled, enjoying this entire situation, especially the sticky and wet feeling of blood on skin. My name is Himiko Toga. As for those guys, they were just a bunch of randos who thought that they could take a girl like me, and to be fair, you did them a favor. If I had to deal with them, they would have gone through a long and brutal bloody death, but you did a great job all on your own. After about 20 minutes of running and ducking through alleyways, they eventually arrive at an apartment. Toga quickly and quietly ushers Izuku inside as she shuts the door and starts to lock it as she turns to face him with a big smile on her face. You were so awesome out there. The way you acted like you didn't care about getting hit and then getting up like some kind of zombie and then having your hands turn into these weapon-like claws. You also have to tell me how you made those guys basically blow up like blood packets. It was like a dream to me. Izuku takes a few steps back, rearing from what happened, but also not knowing what to say when he's getting bombarded by questions, especially from a cute girl. To be honest, I don't know what I did, and I can't believe I killed those guys. I feel like a monster, but at the same time I feel happy. It's really weird. Toga had a look of realization on her face, realizing that her Prince Charming was a first-time killer. Oh, I see, so you haven't done this before. Izuku looked at her as he was holding his shaking hands. Of course not. I didn't know I could even do these things, but something in my mind just... Toga cut him off before he could even finish. Snapped. You finally felt like you needed to release how you really feel instead of just letting everything continue to bottle up inside of you. You finally let it out and shown your true nature and how you feel about the world and people that you don't agree with. Izuku was stunned as he was holding on to the side of his head in confusion. He could still hear the echoes of the people insulting him. He can also hear the screams of those that were killed by him that were helpless and pleading for forgiveness. But what confused him the most was how kind and warm this girl was treating him, even though he just did something very monstrous. There's something I just don't understand. Why are you trying to help me? Shouldn't you be afraid and turning me in or something? Toga just shrugged her shoulders as she walked past Izuku, going into the small kitchen that she has, proceeding to pull out 2 small water bottles from the refrigerator, one for herself and then tossing the other one to Izuku. Because what's wrong with showing your true nature? Society always tries to put people like us down, but it finally feels so good when you finally do something crazy to others who always try to suppress you. Izuku caught the water bottle. When he looked at it, he could see blood prints all over its surface. He then looked at one of the mirrors that was hanging up on the wall as his entire hair was coated in blood along with parts of his face and his clothing. He had a hard time believing believing that this was himself, but for the briefest of moments he could have sworn that his reflection, instead of showing his horror, that it showed a smile from ear to ear. Oh my god, I really need to get this stuff off. Toga takes a sip from her water bottle, then places it on the counter when she is done, as she then walks over to Izuku and licks his cheek clean, completely of blood. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff, but you are right, if that stays on you any longer, you're going to need a heavy-duty sponge to wash it off, so why don't you go take a shower and I'll go wash your clothes for you. Izuku blushed like crazy, feeling the cheek that Toga licked clean. Right, I should do that, but where is the shower? Toga started to help him out of his school uniform a little bit. It's the second door to the left. Izuku jumped back as quickly as possible and started running towards the bathroom. I'll just leave them outside of the bathroom after I'm done taking them off. Toga let out a sigh, hoping that her prince would be a little bit more playful instead of skittish. As she shrugged her shoulders, she was going to the washing machine to get it ready. I guess you can't always get what you want, but give him some time and eventually he'll turn into my perfect bloody prince. Izuku was enjoying the shower, feeling the warm water help him clean off as he started to relax. But his mind started to flash, remembering Bakugo telling him to swan dive off the roof earlier today. I wish I would have told that blonde bastard to shove off earlier. He quickly covered his mouth, realizing what he just said. Why did I just say that? That's not like me. He then thought back on his life, all the times that he was never able to fully fight back against people as they were just taking advantage of him. But the one time he decides to fight back, he discovers something amazing and somebody for once praises him, even though it was wrong. But before he could continue on those thoughts, Toga knocked on the bathroom door. I'm gonna come in for a second and give you one of my robes. All of my towels are dirty from other stuff that I really don't want to get into, so it might be a little bit small. Izuku did his best to hide himself behind the shower curtain as he popped his head out. Oh, that will be fine, thank you. Please, just leave the bathroom. Toga chuckled a little bit playfully as she started to sway her hips back and forth, even pulling the front of her shirt down a little bit lower than she should. Aw, what's the matter? Are you angry with me because I didn't join you in there? Maybe I should. I do owe you a reward for saving me. Izuku started to hyperventilate, not used to this, as blood started to rush to his head as he got a nosebleed, propelling him back into the shower wall, knocking him out, only allowing him to let out one phrase before everything went black. I'm starting to understand why my mom told me girls were dangerous. Toga stood up as she just tilted her head. Well now, this is a predicament. It took her a few minutes, but she finally got Izuku out of the shower and dried him off. And she had to say she was impressed with what she saw as she got Izuku into the bathrobe and then laid him onto the couch. That's when she could hear the sound of a phone getting a text message. Realizing that that wasn't her ringer, it had to be Izuku's. She ran over to his bag and looked at it, seeing that it said it was a text message from his mother. Is everything okay, sweetie? You're taking an awfully long time to get home. Toga scratched the back of her head, trying to think about what to text back when she finally got an idea. I'm fine, Mom. I'm just spending some time at a friend's house. It was a last-minute thing. Inko, on her end, was so happy to hear that her son was hanging out with friends, thinking that he was just going to be alone for his whole life, so quickly text back in joy. Oh, then have a good time. If you're going to be staying there for multiple days, make sure to come by and get some clothes, and try not to be rude and show that you have manners every chance that you get. Toga felt her shoulders sag from how innocent and stiff Izuku's mother could be. No problem. I'll probably text you tomorrow morning to let you know what's going to happen. Inko texts back with a thumbs up and a heart emoji as Toga proceeded to put the phone back into the bag. She then proceeded to take her own shower as she was thinking about about her new friend or possibly lover as she blushed, holding onto her cheeks and swaying back and forth. I want to drink his blood so badly, but I just want to get his permission. If he even says yes, I'll fall head over heels for him. When Toga was finally done with her shower and leaving the bathroom, she wrapped her hair in a towel and another towel around her waist, leaving her chest area exposed, walking around the living room like she usually does, only for her to see Izuku waking up in that moment. He turned his head to look at her as his jaw nearly hit the floor, as his entire face turned so red that he tried to turn around, but he slipped and hit his head on the coffee table, which made him stumble backwards as he was covering his eyes. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that you were just in. I didn't know what happened a second ago. I was in the shower. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in the living room. Toga was laughing out loud as she was wiggling her shoulders to make her breast bounce up and down a little bit just to tease him a little bit more. Once she saw that he was completely covering his face, she took her towel that was on top of her head and covered her top. Alright, I'm done teasing. You can open your eyes now. Izuku slowly opened his fingers to see that she was completely covered as he stands back up, but he doesn't realize that his robe was open. Thank you for covering up, and thank you for helping me once again. Toga was staring downwards while she was listening. It's no problem, but unless you're going to stab someone with that or tell me that you're just so excited to see me, you might want to cover up. Izuku looked down, seeing that he was completely exposed as he closed the robe quickly, feeling like an exposed child in front of her. I am so sorry, so very sorry, I didn't even realize. Toga shakes her head as she just continues to laugh. It's okay, I had to drag you out of the shower anyway, so I've already seen it, and besides, with my own quirk, I usually run around naked. What about you? It seems like your ability probably makes you have to go through a new pair of clothes every day. Izuku scratched the back of his head as he started to calm down a little bit. To be honest, I don't know, I haven't had a quirk until the incident in the alleyway. He really didn't feel like talking about that right now, so he tried to change the subject. Why don't you just tell me about your quirk? Toga tried to think of the best way she could explain her abilities to somebody else. Well, my quirk is called transformation. The more blood I have of a person in my system, the longer I can stay transformed as them. I copy their appearance, their voice, and even their clothes, but in order to do the clothes thing, I need to be wearing nothing to begin with. That's why I keep on telling you I'm used to running around naked. Izuku out of nowhere was writing in his notebook, taking all the notes he could about what he just heard. I see. Is there anything else that you can do when you're transformed? Toga had a sweat drop on her forehead, wondering where he got the notebook from. When she looked over her shoulder, she noticed that his school bag was open, even though she closed it earlier. Nothing that I can think of at the moment, but how did you get that notebook? Izuku tilted his head in confusion, looking at his side, expecting his bag to be there. When he noticed nothing was there, he looked behind Toga, noticing his school bag was behind her, and that there was a significant distance as he looked back at his notebook and pencil that he was holding on to, but couldn't figure out how he had them. I don't know, it's weird. I shouldn't be able to get them without you noticing, but I did. Toga was trying to think about what she saw back in the alleyway as Izuku's body got stronger, how he got physically stronger, and how his fingers turned into daggers. Do you think that you might have the ability to augment your own body? Izuku sat down on the couch, trying to think about it. I don't know. It's nothing like my mom's quirk, and it doesn't seem to be anything like my father's. Toga then remembered about the text message from Izuku's mother. Speaking of your mother, she texted you earlier, so I had to text in your place saying that you're spending the night at a friend's house, so if she asks, that's our story. Izuku nearly forgot about his mother after all this crazy nonsense. Appreciate it. I really didn't feel safe about going home right now, so I'm thankful that you let me stay the night. Toga put on her flirting smile. No problem, Daddy. But that's where I'm gonna leave it off this time, guys. Make sure to leave a like and comment down below. I really do like to read them, and I do hope that you will enjoy this new series. But with all that said, I'm out. Peace.